right? So I want to thanks everyone for joining today's live seminar. I'm Sat Chahal with OpsVerse Engineering, and today we have one of our co-founders, Arul Jagadish, here to talk about all things private SaaS. Before we hand it off, we want you to know that this session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording with you at the end. And there's also a Q&A section also at the end. But as you go, if you have questions, go ahead and ask in the Q&A tab of this webinar. With that, I'll let Arul take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Sat. I'm Arul. I'm one of the co-founders of OpsVerse. Sat mentioned today's webinar is all about private SaaS. We'll talk about what private SaaS is and how it affects your DevOps tools. First of all, a note about the scope of discussion here. So today, when we talk about SaaS, when we refer to SaaS, we will specifically be referring to SaaS in the context of tools, specifically DevOps tools. And when we talk about SaaS, we'll not be referring to like general software as a service in other domains. Now, that said, here is a quick look at the agenda for today. We'll start the discussion by looking at the different models of deploying tools that are available today. Then we'll specifically go into details of private SaaS. And we'll also touch on like some aspects of private SaaS, like a high-level architecture. And if there are any questions, we can address those questions as well. All right, so let's get started with different models of deploying tools. So if you look at different vendors and look at the industry today, the first model here is traditional SaaS. This is one of the most common and popular models for deploying tools. This is where you go into a service provider's or a vendor's website, sign up, and then start using a tool. Everything runs in the vendor's network, and the vendor manages everything for you. The other end of the spectrum, we have self-hosted model. And in the self-hosted model, you as a customer, as a user, will run everything and manage everything yourself. And typically, these are like open source tools that you would take and run with it. Some examples here are like Grafana, Prometheus, Jenkins, tools like this that you would actually typically run and manage by yourself. Now we are seeing a new model. This is not quite a new model, but maybe perhaps a new name to it, called as dedicated single tenant model. In this model, we see some traditional SaaS vendors now beginning to offer another model where they'll run a dedicated single tenant instance for some of their customers. In the past, this used to be called as like a hosted deployment model. Now we see some traction around this as well. Recently, we saw GitLab making an announcement around dedicated, and we see a few more tools vendors offering this model too. And then we had a shiny new private SaaS model. Of course, this webinar is going to be a lot around private SaaS model. So in the private SaaS model, a vendor basically runs all these tools within the customer's network, but at the same time, they take full responsibility to run and manage it, just like a SaaS vendor. So you kind of bring the flexibility of SaaS, the goodness of SaaS to the self-hosted type environment. All right. So let's now talk a little bit more about each of these different models. With traditional SaaS, it's hosted and managed in the provider's cloud, and it's usually multi-tenant, where the provider creates a big multi-tenant environment for each of their customers. The data residency and governance is fully with the provider. As a customer, you do not have much control over that. But at the same time, this is very convenient and reliable, where you don't really have to worry about anything. The provider takes care of everything. The flip side is that you have very less control, and it usually is costly, on the costly side. As we go, we'll talk about why this model ends up to be a costlier model. Some examples of vendors who offer like traditional SaaS tools through traditional SaaS, like Datadog, CodeFresh, New Relic, Circle CI, BuildKite. These are all like examples of like SaaS tool vendors. Now, the other end of the spectrum, we are self-hosted, where as a user, you will host and manage everything within your cloud. Because of that, you have full control on data residency and governance. It's totally under your control. You can decide where to keep your data, how long to keep. All of that is fully under your control. But at the same time, now the flip side is you have a lot of operational overhead, and it is less reliable compared to the SaaS model where an expert provider is managing the infrastructure for you. And also there is a lot of ongoing maintenance. You will have to take care of the upgrades, the integrations, the security patching, pretty much all day two operations is on you. You will have to take care of that. Some examples are like running Grafana, Prometheus, Elasticsearch, Jenkins, tools like that, like yourself, is the self-hosted model. Now, let's talk about the private SaaS. In the private SaaS is where we combine the best of both worlds. We bring in the flexibility of SaaS, but at the same time, we allow the customers to keep the control of self-hosted. In this case, all the tools themselves are hosted within the customer's network, but it is fully managed by the provider through, just like how a provider would manage SaaS, they'll manage private SaaS. And because all the tools are running within your network, the data never leaves your network perimeter, and hence you have full data residency and governance options. A quick comparison against comparison between these three models. If you look at like who manages the infrastructure with SaaS and private SaaS, it's the provider, and self-hosted, it's the customer, it's you. With respect to reliability with SaaS and private SaaS, you tend to get high reliability because you have a specialized provider running this infrastructure and managing it. With self-hosted, it's usually low. The reliability takes a hit. Security hardening, again, with SaaS and private SaaS, it's tend to be better. Self-hosted, it seems to be low. I mean, it's usually low. Operational overhead, SaaS is where you have the lowest operational overhead. All you have to do is go initiate, sign up, and then you can run with it. Self-hosted, it's definitely high. With private SaaS, we would call it medium, because even though you have a provider managing everything, there will be some aspects where you will still need to help the provider or take care of some aspects of infrastructure. Time to value with SaaS and private SaaS, it's quick. It's usually 1 or 2 clicks and you can start using your tools. With self-hosted, you do have to go through the full operationalization and then before you can start using it. Data residency and data governance, you do not have much options with SaaS, but you have full control with self-hosted and private SaaS. Compliance requirements, you are really dependent on the provider for SaaS. With self-hosted, you do not have any external dependencies. With private SaaS, you have some dependency. We won't say no dependency. There will be some dependency for you with the provider. Data transfer costs, this is something we'll actually touch on with SaaS. Especially if you are sending a lot of data to your provider, then you do have high data transfer costs. With self-hosted and private SaaS, it's pretty low. All right, now let's touch on different a few aspects of the architecture. So first of all, with SaaS, it's pretty straightforward. Think of it as a black box cloud that your provider gives you, where all you have to do is you just go to their website and sign up. Everything runs in their cloud, and it's usually a multi-tenant environment where they have one big environment where they create multiple tenants, one each for their customers. Now, with respect to private SaaS, all the magic happens within your network, or most of the magic happens within your network, where all the tools are orchestrated within your network. So they are by definition single tenant just for you. But at the same time, the vendor's control plane runs in the vendor's network, and that takes care of all the day-to-day operations and all the management aspects of it. I want to call out a couple of components here. There is a deployment agent, telemetry agent. In private SaaS architectures, you will definitely see these two components in some form. So the deployment agent is the one that takes care of upgrading and managing these tools that are orchestrated here. And then the telemetry agent is what enables the vendor to monitor and ensure everything's healthy. A good private SaaS architecture is actually done exactly like a SaaS architecture is done. Only difference is you kind of push some of these components to live within the customer's network. All right, now so far we talked about why private SaaS is there, like why it's we talked about the advantages of private SaaS, but why do we really need private SaaS? Why do we need a new model of deployment right now? There are a few reasons. First of all, there is an increasing trend towards data residency and data governance. More and more countries, more and more governments are mandating additional strict compliance requirements around data residency and data governance. With a model like private SaaS, you'll be able to easily meet most of those compliance requirements. That's one need, like why we need private SaaS. And then sort of better security setup. Now, if you look at DevOps tools, and these are the tools that need access to your source code. These are tools that need access to your production systems. So you really need a tight security controls around these tools. There are a couple of examples here. If you look at any continuous delivery tools that are offered as SaaS, in some form or the other, you have to expose your production systems to those tools that are running in some third-party cloud vendors network. That's a huge security problem. Ideally, you want those tools to be running next to your production system within your network. So something like private SaaS will be able to meet such requirements. Then there is cost of running tools. Here again, there is one more example here is if you are using observability tools from a SaaS vendor, example Datadog, and if you're like generating about 1 terabyte of logs, then you're looking at about $50,000 a year of cost just for transferring the logs from your network to your vendor's network. That's a hidden cost that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of customers don't even realize that such a cost exists. We are working with a customer, given their volume of data, they were looking at about $200,000 a year just for transferring their logs to the SaaS vendor. So that cost can really add up. And with something like private SaaS, you'll be able to really drastically reduce that cost. So that's why private SaaS is like more important now than ever. In the future, you'll definitely see more support for a private SaaS architecture. So we talked about all the goodness of private SaaS. Now, are there any challenges, like challenges around offering a private SaaS model? First of all, it's not easy to manage private SaaS setup at scale. You really need a robust remote deployment framework. You need a way to run single tenant, like hundreds of single tenant instances in a scalable, reliable manner. Plus, the additional challenges, at times remote debugging of issues is also difficult, especially when it is beyond the provider's control. It is difficult. And here at OpsVerse, I mean, these are the areas where we have spent a lot of engineering efforts in to solve these problems. And to an extent, we already solved these problems. So if you're considering a private SaaS vendor, somebody who's offering private SaaS, like these are the areas that you have to check to see whether they have mechanism in place to address these challenges. Okay, now how does the future look like for private SaaS? We see it as an emerging model of delivery. We already see a strong demand in the market, and in the coming years, we expect this demand to go up given all these increase in data compliance requirements. In 2023 and beyond, we'll also start to see some established architectures emerging. We already see a lot of vendors move, like in the tool space, DevOps tool space, moving towards dedicated. That's sort of one step towards private SaaS. We will see more and more providers like offering private SaaS like solutions. All right, and before we kind of wrap up things and go into like questions, I just want to provide a couple of links for more information. An article came out in the News Stack earlier this week on Private SaaS. We contributed to that article. We also have a blog on Private SaaS. Like these are really great references to go more further details into Private SaaS. Now, if you're still curious, please connect with us on Twitter. Plus, we have a community Slack. All of us are there. We have a great community of DevOps engineers there, DevOps and like platform engineers there. Like, do join us if you're like curious about continuing this discussion. All right, that's what I have. Like Sadhbir, over to you. Like, if there are any questions, we can start taking questions now. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. Great session. Let's open this up now to the forum. If there's any questions, you can use the Q&A tab to go ahead and ask. So yeah, thanks, Arul, for the breakdown there on Private SaaS. That was interesting. Nothing so far. Nothing so far. I think yeah. Any questions? Now's a good time. There's that Q&A tab. As questions are coming in, I think one question that was asked earlier, we may not have that. Oh, there we go. There's one. What kind of access do you need to my infrastructure? Do I have to open any ports for you guys?
Oh yeah, great question. Actually, with the OpsVerse private SaaS model, you really don't have to open up any access. That's really what we have done with this infrastructure. We do it without a need for access. So that's where this agent comes in, where all you have to do is bring this agent in your infrastructure, bootstrap your infrastructure with that agent, and the agent takes care of everything.
Yeah, great answer. I hope that answers. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, good question too. Very good question. Anything else? Anyone else? There's a raised hand. Let's see. I think somebody might be typing, so give it a second. I don't see anything yet. I do have a question, Rule. Oh, there we go. Another one came up. Thanks. Does it send any data, or what kind of data will this agent send to your infrastructure?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's again another good question here. I mean, this is something that we this is a question we get from all our customers as they go through this journey. So we actually, so if you look at it, there are two agents here really, and those are the two agents that communicate back with the control plane. And really what we are collecting here is the health information, the telemetry around how, like, the metrics and logs from the components that we run, the tools we run, so that the control plane can understand the health of the systems and kind of remediate it. That's really the only thing that comes out of your network. Otherwise, like your data, for example, if you're using a log management system, then your application logs themselves will actually live only within your network. It's never shipped outside your network.
Great. Yeah, that's good. That's good news. Anything else, guys? I think let's see. I'm gonna check the Q&A one more. That's done. Yeah, I don't see any open questions. The one question I was gonna ask as you were going was not ask, but kind of want to share, like, how's the adoption for private SaaS in general? Like, do you see it really emerging? Is that just a feeling, or are you actually seeing tangible evidence of that?
Yeah, great question. So we see good adoption. We see customers asking for it, and especially customers from industries like fintech and healthcare, where they do have do have really sensitive data requirements. We see a lot of asks from those sectors. Now, interestingly, and to our surprise, we also see customers from other sectors also showing interest, where they don't want to, really want to send any of their like customer specific data outside their network. Also, like customers who want to deploy their infrastructure in different regions. Like we have a customer who has infrastructure in like US, Singapore, and EU, and they want to ensure their telemetry data and DevOps tools also live within those regions only. So in those cases, we see a lot of takers for private SaaS. So given where the cloud native landscape is, given how mature the Kubernetes and other tools are, we really see that the time for a model like private SaaS has come, and we'll see more and more customers like opting for private SaaS instead of SaaS, or instead of self-hosted. We'll see like a lot of people moving to private SaaS type environment.
Right on. Yep, I get that same feeling. Q&A, we'll go give it. Oh, one more question. This is interesting. We are a healthcare company and we have been building on our own self-hosted. If there's absolutely no access required from you, it's a great proposition for us to consider. Oh, there's just a comment. Yeah, so it's no question there, but yeah, it's a comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something that we hear as we talk to customers as well. Like today, when you look at sectors like healthcare, the only option is for them to hire contractors or engineers and then just like manage these tools within their network. Now, private SaaS is a great option for such environments, where they can now finally access the benefits of SaaS, but at the same time, they don't have to compromise on data governance requirements.
Right on. Yeah, very good questions. Thank you for that comment. One more. Just curious, what are the typical infrastructure cost for me if I have to go for private SaaS?
Yeah, so that's another like valid question. So as you have seen, like in this case, the tools are running within your network. So there is going to be infrastructure costs to run those tools. But even in the self-hosted model, you are anyway going to be like anyway going to be paying for that infrastructure. And with respect to private SaaS, because this is coming through the vendor, your infrastructure is anyway going to be optimized with respect to auto scaling and resource allocation. So it's going to be better than self-hosted from that cost perspective. And at the same time, you'll save a lot around like data transfer cost, and you get much better data residency options. Your data doesn't leave you. So it kind of saves you a lot of cost around your auditing and your data security.
Right on. Right on. So yeah, another good question. Yeah, I'll leave it up for about 30 more seconds. Thanks, Arul. Okay, sorry. One more. Talking about security and compliance, how do your customers handle SOC 2 audit?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, what happens here is, since all these tools are running within your network, it's really easy to get through SOC for this infrastructure. We have multiple customers who have already gone through their SOC audits, and they were able to breeze through the controls relating to the tools that we run. Because there are a lot of tools, a lot of SOC controls around like log management and metrics management and all of that. And like with this model, like running through getting your SOC audit is like much easier for those controls.
Great. Yeah, I think that totally answers that question. I'll mark that done. Yeah, we'll give it another maybe 20-30 seconds just to make sure, and then we'll definitely wrap it up. Please feel free to ask any questions that are on your mind. But otherwise, yeah, thanks. We got one more. Where does your control plane run? So I think that's regarding this architecture diagram.
So I mean, if you look at this picture, the control plane runs in our network, typically in the vendor's network, because that's necessary to, so that's where the SaaS goodness comes in. The control plane runs there, and the control plane takes care of running all these, managing all these tools in a scalable, reliable manner.
Great. Yep.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I see
of
here.
Questions this time.
Yeah, there were. Yeah. Actually, this is good. This is actually very good. I'm glad it's engaging. Yeah, I see here there were 6 answered questions. So yeah, we'll leave it up for another 20-30 seconds, just if anything comes to mind. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. But yeah, I definitely want to thank the audience for taking, the time out of their day. West, people actually are from all over the world here. So it's night for some people, morning for others. So awesome. Yeah, there's no other questions popping up. Yeah, Arul, thank you for that discussion, that overview. And one more question: how do I get OpsVerse t-shirts? I see some cool hoodies too. Yeah. I would say let's message that to one of our founders. Arul left his contact information. He'll ship you one.
So join our Slack channel, ping us, and we'll mail one out as soon as possible. You can join here.
Yeah, I think these hoodies are awesome. I think they're comfy too, and they get our word out, our name out. Answer live.
All right.
Okay. So yeah, thank you guys. Until our next webinar, right? Have a great time. Happy holidays. We may not have one before that, or we may. Who knows? Keep an eye out. Listen to us, and otherwise, happy holidays and a happy new year. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Thanks, everyone.